Welcome everybody here to round one of Grand Prix Milwaukee. TJ Rogers here, joined by Eduardo Sajgalik, and we have got our first matchup of the day. It is going to be Reza Salati up against Seth Drager, and they're going to be lining up. We don't quite have the deck list in front of us yet, but it looks like we're going to be kicking things off with a basic plains, and we're just going to go ahead and find ourselves a basic land. Flower is going to go ahead, grab a basic forest, so I think we're looking at a green-white shell on the right side of the battlefield.
Usually Flower being a giveaway, but a really powerful card in these, these Selesnya decks, allowing to act as essentially a kind of weird Selesnya Guildgate, but also in the late game having access to Flourish is really powerful. It allows, it kind of is a little reminiscent of a tune with Aether, this ability to search a land with a bonus.
All right, and it's going to be a Danto Vanguard that comes down for Seth. This is the 3, I guess it's a 1/1, but it always attacks with 3 power. When it's attacking it gets +2/+0. You can pay 4 life to make it indestructible.
Yeah, a Danto Vanguard has been a stalwart of these white aggressive decks. However, when you see Reza here playing Foreign Lieutenant, that tells me that this might be a different take on the Selesnya decks. Foreign Lieutenant is not in all of them, so you can say that sometimes it feels like it's going to be more mid-range or Selesnya tokens, while a Danto Vanguard is more likely going to be in the aggressive versions and might just be in all of the decks. It's just such a powerful threat, and History of Benalia here.
History of Benalia comes down, and this is going to be one of those sagas. The first chapter going to bring us a knight, as it is going to do next turn as well, and then there's going to be a giant boost to those knights on that third turn of it being out and about. A Danto Vanguard facing off against this 2/3 Thorn Lieutenant. Not the easiest card to target either, because if you do start pointing your removal spells at it, it is going to replace itself with a 1/1.
Yeah, and here, this isn't so from Reza's side, I find it strange that the Danto Vanguard wouldn't have attacked. It's not exactly the best blocker. Probably I wouldn't put those Seth on a March of the Multitudes. The only thing I would say here, Seth probably would have attacked just because the Danto Vanguard has almost no use on defense here. So if I'm Reza, there's a possibility in my mind that there's 2 March of the Multitudes coming. That would be the most likely outcome. But with nothing, it just seems like Seth didn't want to be in the position of paying 4 life. But I feel here an attack would have been probably good last turn here.
All right, Knight of Autumn comes down for Reza, and that is going to be getting 2 +1/+1 counters. It's got 3 options. And Drager is just going to kick the turn back once more. That Vanguard, it's not attacking, it's not blocking. It might as well not even be there.
Yeah. Well, it helps with the Convoke, right, of March of the Multitudes, and that's kind of, it might be a team player down the line, but looking at Seth's hand, it looks like it's March the Multitudes and Flourish Flower along with 2 lands. So Reza here, I believe, with these Knights and all these large bodies is going to take a slight advantage. It looks like there's another effect here with Seal Away.
Ah, okay, so we're going to eliminate that 4/3. This exiles target creature. It's going to eliminate that one. We have also got a block on one of these Knights. Now, those Knights did get a big boost from that History of Benalia, so not a whole lot of sense in paying that 4 life. Already taken a hit. We're down to 10, and we are going to very quickly use another Knight of Autumn, another ability, destroy target artifact or enchantment, hits, Seal Away, gets back the original, which is right back to being a 4/3. Reza barely even blinking at that setback.
Yeah, and that was a really nice sequence there, being able to kill the Seal Away plus get the Knight of Autumn back.
Is Carnage Tyrant enough?
Here, let's see, with the attack, you block the 4/3, you're taking 8, going down to 2. The March of the Multitudes is going to be really nice in this spot, where Reza is trying to finish off the game, but Seth will be able to untap and play a March in order to gain life, eat another creature, and maybe stabilize. This is going to be relatively close. Seth might be able to take this one back, but Reza being ahead for now. It depends on the next turn's attack, because the March of the Multitudes would essentially act as a fog effect, and with that second Foreign Lieutenant, that might be it. I don't know if March is sufficient here.
March is going to be gaining some life as well. All those 1/1s that it produces, they do have lifelink, so that is going to be one thing to keep in mind as we head into the math there for Drager. But Salati has got to be feeling good. It is a massive board up against the Lizard King, and I just can't feel that concern. March of the Multitudes is really the only card on my mind.
Right, exactly. I mean, there are some spicy lists that sometimes play one Settle the Wreckage. Shout out to that moment in the semifinals. But here, Reza deciding to only attack with 4 creatures, with a March potentially coming. But I feel here that attacking with all... I mean, Carnage Tyrant is already going to eat one of these creatures. There's not much that can be done to avoid that. So I kind of would have preferred here an all-out attack to make sure that these tokens cannot get an advantage, say, by double blocking a Knight and getting rid of it from the board. Reza's still ahead, though. Seth doesn't seem to have many spells in hand, and Carnage Tyrant alone isn't going to get the job done. Yeah.
Now, that Thorn Lieutenant is still going to be a really nice option. It's got an activated ability for 6 mana to give it +4/+4. That does mean that it is going to end up trading with that Carnage Tyrant. So that one, despite being the massive 7/6, is not going to be long-lived on this battlefield.
Yeah. Carnage Tyrant is not at its best in a matchup like this. Essentially, it's just a large body, which is good. But without the removal suite of, say, the Golgari mid-range deck to kind of support it, it doesn't play as key a role as you would say in the Golgari mid-range mirror, where each player has a lot of Ravenous Chupacabras, cast-downs, and Vraska's Contempts and effects of that nature.
Ooh, and it looks like that is just going to be picking the cards up for Drager. So game 1, heading to Reza Salati on this Selesnya Knights up against Selesnya mid-range. And these are both that green-white shell, but this comes down to, earlier you mentioned that there's a lot of this sense that there's no set deck list for a lot of these color pairings. We know that there are, high-level versions of Boros in red-white, of blue-red, even green-white making its way to the tables. But even here, right in the first round, we're seeing that 2 people approach the deck a completely different way.
Right, exactly. The builds are not the same. Each player has a slightly different game plan. For me, though, Selesnya makes sense, right? Like, if you see the top 8 of the Pro Tour and you feel that essentially white, red, as some people call it, that's the deck to beat. That's the deck that you have to be worried about. Then at that point, you're going to naturally gravitate towards Selesnya decks because they are designed to win this kind of fight in the white weenie mirrors, so to speak, because they have access to March of the Multitudes, which is a way to go big. They have roughly the same amount of pump effects, but again, that March of the Multitudes is such a key card. The white weenie decks can kind of produce 1 or 2 bodies for each card, and then March of the Multitudes can undo all that work in a single card. So you end up in this situation where one of the decks plays 4 trump cards in those 4 March of the Multitudes, and the other doesn't. So that's why those Selesnya decks tend to be extremely favored, is just the presence of that card. Let alone anything else you might also run to try to gain an edge in the mirror.
One thing I like about this matchup, actually both Reza and Seth are from the Wisconsin area, so both of them on the local side. And I like this as sort of a coming together of 2 avenues, because Reza's been playing this game for 15 years, right? Someone who has just been really ingrained in this game, really invested in this game, been playing it for a long time. Seth, on the other side, been playing this game for about a year, actually, on the, at that point of starting to compete on the higher up level. He loves the idea that this is the sort of game that you can get anybody can play. Plays Magic with his younger brother, and both of them now coming here. And I just like seeing how you can have someone who is part of the old guard in a sense. Been playing this for such a long time, coming face to face with someone who's newer to the game.
Yeah, no, and I really enjoy those aspects, right? Like when I started. Fresh face at a pre-release. People there were relatively helpful. They were trying to show me, how to build decks, how to get better at the game. And, now 15 years forward, I feel like I paid that forward, right? Trying to, teach the next guard how to build decks. It's the fact you can have played any amount of time. You can kind of play from anywhere, and you can join the game at any point. And I think that's also what I've really enjoyed about Arena was, when you have your brand new account, you get to play some good old, fresh, casual Magic, so to speak, getting used to what it was to play Magic, when you started. Mm-hmm. And it's been a while since I've had that feeling. I've Now, I guess the old guard, it's weird to say that.
So as they're heading into game 2, is there anything that really stands out in the sideboards of these two decks that might give them a pretty significant edge in this one? Or is this going to be sort of just a shift of the game plan?
I think here the free settle the wreckage that Reza has access to are going to be quite a big one.
Did you say 3?
Yes, free.
All right, so not the first time that we've seen one of these white pseudo-aggressive decks running Settle the Wreckage, though this time with a green splash. It's Llanowar Elf from Draeger to kick things off, and that means that we're already starting off basically on turn 3 because of that mana accelerant from the Llanowar Elf. And it looks like we're actually just going to play a land and turn it sideways. The often underseen attack for 1.
Yeah, usually an attack that makes me happy. And if I have removal, when my opponent's Llanowar Elves attacks for 1, I'm way more incentivized to want to destroy it, just because I know that there's a higher chance that they might power out a 4-drop.
Looks like it's going to be Druid of the Cow following up from Reza, so both of these running a mana producer. This one, it does cost twice as much. It's 2 mana, but being a 1/3 can be a pretty nice edge in this.
It's usually for matchups where something like Fiery Cannonade gets involved, or when you want a blocker against an early Sky Marcher Aspirant. But in this specific matchup, it tends to not make too much of a difference. But you see here that why Selesnya Guildgate is in play. Conclave Cavalier does not have the lightest of mana requirements. So usually when you're playing a card like that, something like Selesnya Guildgate makes sense. The reason you don't see Izzet Guildgate too often in the blue-red decks is because they have access to almost an infinity of card draw. But the Selesnya deck doesn't have too much mana fixing, so it makes sense to run 2 copies of Selesnya Guildgate here to help with the mana.
That Conclave Cavalier, it's a 4/4 for 4 with Vigilance. And really, it's just 2 elves dressed up in a centaur suit. You know, once you take that one down, the trick is revealed, and those 2 elf knights hit the battlefield.
Yeah, I was going to mention they're more knights. You know, it's because in a deck with History of Benalia, that Conclave Cavalier dying can make a lot of work.
Looks like it's going to be another copy of Druid of the Cal, and right on cue, History of Benalia hits the battlefield, and that is going to give us one of those 2/2 knights with Vigilance. So we now have the Cavalier and the Knight. Next turn, we're going to get another one of these tokens. And Seth, we're tapping 6 mana. It is going to be Carnage Tyrant hitting the battlefield once more. Last game, it fell a little short. This time, the mighty 7/6 is facing down kind of a similar board, actually.
Yeah. And here, by the way, the start, last match you might have noticed it as a cameo appearance, but the advantage bar is in full force at the Grand Prix. Here I'm giving a little bit of the advantage to Reza, simply because of the position here, of like having a wider board being more important than having a tall board in these matchups, right? You want to have more creatures rather than having the largest ones. And with that block, Reza gets to set up for a gigantic History of Benalia first chapter.
Yeah, no fear on that attack with the 4/4 into the 7/6. The block just means that it replaces itself with 2 of those, which means you actually get additional power and toughness from that History of Benalia, and that's going to be followed up by another copy of Conclave Cavalier. This board is mighty on Reza's side of the field. For Seth Draeger, trying to come up with some sort of answer. Looks like it's going to be 4 mana, and there's on Sarah's wings.
Why have an answer when you can
Carnage Tyrant just grew a set of wings and is flying in with the Vigilance and the lifelink. That's +1/+1 as well. Oh. That's going to be an 8-point life swing.
A gigantic, legendary, almost angelic like dinosaur. But yeah, here Seth having the choice between trying to bait Reza into a big sell the wreckage, or going for the more proactive play of playing on Sarah's wings.
So has Settle the Wreckage in hand?
Yeah, Seth has Settle the Wreckage in hand.
Oh, what a tough call that must have been. But attacking in against 4 open mana has got to feel bad. And it's going to be Shalai that comes down to the battlefield, which means that is no longer going to be an option. Shalai says that you have hexproof in addition to other creatures you control, and that Settle the Wreckage does target up the player.
Yeah, Settle the Wreckage won't do anything against Shalai, Voice of Plenty. And yeah, with this but Seth Draeger has access to Seal Away in hand. So here, oh my.
We've got blocks now. That Conclave Tribunal did also eliminate the on Sarah's wings.
Yeah, we want to, blocking the Conclave Cavalier here is not advisable because it is a 6/5, I believe, from the history of Benalia. So, yeah, the Carnage Tyrant does not want to block that Cavalier. Probably the Llanowar Elves, if it wanted to chump block, would be on the Conclave. I believe that history of Benalia boosts all Knights, so that would include Conclave Cavalier.
It does, yeah. So Seal Away eliminates one of these attackers. It is the Shalai, and that's really nice.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Now, I still have the advantage on Seth because of how powerful the card Settle the Wreckage is, alongside of the, I believe, second copy of Sarah's Wings in hand.
It's going to be another Llanowar Elves that joins the battlefield. We're tapping out once more. It's on Sarah's Wings again, and the dinosaur is not going to quit just yet. It is swinging back with this legendary aura.
Yeah, and Seth taking the decisive advantage here. Reza needing either another Conclave Tribunal or a Knight of Autumn, and that's not going to do it.
The Carnage Tyrant with wings gets the job done for Drager. That is not how I expected this game 2 to go after what we saw. Were those... when's the last time that you saw the Lizard King flying?
I actually had to face that in Grand Prix, New Jersey. Like, I lost to that.
That's amazing.
That was one of my free losses on the weekend, too, in the Swiss. That was the only loss where I didn't feel like I had a terrible draw. Just Dinosaur plus on Sarah's Wings. Actually, it might have been Vinemare, you know, the smaller, more evolved horse dinosaur.
The Horse King.
The Horse King. There we go. The king of the horses.
Oh, man. So, we already know about those Settle the Wreckages. You mentioned those out of the deck of Reza. On Seth's side, is there anything in that sideboard that's really standing out? We do know about the singular Settle the Wreckage, and it looks like those On Sarah's Wings were also a popular decision. That's at least 3 of the cards that came in. Is there anything else that's really standing out to you?
I think these free copies of Ixalan's Binding are interesting. You have seen Knight of Autumn, but Knight of Autumn is going to be overworking already. Between Seal Away and the Sarah's Wings, Reza is going to put those back in the deck if they're not there. So at that point, you know that there's going to be access to as many of that effect as possible, plus maybe something like Vivian Reed. But I still feel like you want Ixalan's Binding, just because on something like a Conclave Cavalier, it can be quite powerful. It's unfortunate that it kind of runs into this card advantage issue against a Knight or a Vivian Reed. So then you have to make that decision. And I'm not 100% sure how Seth is setting up the sideboard plan here for this matchup specifically, but I'm guessing maximizing on Sarah's Wings is likely better than Ixalan's Binding. Since if the on Sarah's Wings gets blown up, at least you've had an attack in, at least you've dealt some damage, and you've been able to stabilize. So I think here maybe not too many Ixalan's Bindings, but yeah, I kind of like this plan from Seth. Yes, Tocatli Honor Guard, normally a card you have for the Golgari matchup, but if the only card you care about is Knight of Autumn, then a Tocatli Honor Guard can actually be quite a nice one here.
Yeah, and it's a 1/3 as well, which is really nice in combat.
Yeah. I wouldn't want too many copies of it because aside of Knight of Autumn and the District Guide you've seen, there's not a ton, but Reza specifically has a hand full of lands, Knight of Autumn, and District Guide. So, Seth is taking over here.
Wow, that 1/3 really making itself known. That Knight of Autumn becomes a 3-mana 2/1. It's not exactly where you want to be with your multicolored toolbox cards.
Yeah, and just based on the hands, I'd say Seth already has an advantage, but Reza drawing Lyra Dawnbringer, and there's the grayest of ogres.
District Guide comes down. No district for it to find right now, so it's really, the tours have kind of shut down. That Tocatli Honor Guard, not that really interested. Karn, Scion of Urza, coming down. One of the loyalty on this card is massive, and we're going to take a look at 2 cards. One of them is going to go to the hand. It's Llanowar Elf or Carnage Tyrant. Not too difficult of a decision, but still plus a card, and now that Karn can actually either use the minus ability to grab that Carnage Tyrant or just continue to use that +1 and assemble cards in hand. But it's Lyra Dawnbringer, the flying 5/5 lifelink. Yeah. This is a big, bad card for Drager.
Right, but Seth having access to Settle the Wreckage, which we just saw go in the hand, I kind of like here plussing since it forces Reza to at least do 2 attacks, and you can always you're going to get a card here. Plus, if Reza decides to attack Karn with Lyra Dawnbringer, then you get to minus and get the card you desire. So this gets you as far as you can into a Seal Away or Settle the Wreckage. But yeah, Seth having in hand that Cellular Wreckage is going to make this Lyra go away. And yeah, it's going to be a hard one for Reza to come because Reza...
4-mana removal spell to get rid of the Angel, but it's a 1-for-1 that Drager has got to be happy with, especially a 1-for-1 isn't really that when you have a Karn on your side of the battlefield.
Yeah, no, it's... Yeah, Karn keeps ticking up, and here Reza just doesn't have much pressure. I think I saw a history of Benalia, but Sev is going to be able to nab that Carnage Tyrant off the Karn Sign of Urza and put it in play, and that's going to be the largest thing on the battlefield. And Sev is just going to keep going with the Karn Sign of Urza, keep getting cards, and keep pulling ahead.
Ooh. All right, let's keep it going.
Okay, I did not spot that Carnage Tyrant from Reza. That's going to be important. Most likely, though, the most likely outcome is going to be Carnage Tyrants trading. That's their best job. Facing each other and munching on each other.
All right, so they're not one for teamwork. Vinemare as well, and looks like it's going to be another copy of Llanowar Elves. Continuing to plus that one up, did not want his own Carnage Tyrant. So now there is the lone Carnage. Oh, is that just because there's another one in hand? Yeah, very nice. All right, so there's one underneath the Karn, and trading with that suddenly looks a lot easier when you know that you've got another one underneath this Karn.
Yeah, I mean, Seth would gladly trade anyways. Any trade when you have a active Planeswalker in play that's giving you a card per turn, you're happy to take any 1-for-1 trade because your opponent is essentially trading 1 card for 1, but you get to draw 2 cards a turn. So you're trading half of the potential of each turn while your opponent's trading their full potential. So at that point, you're always getting ahead. And yeah, I think here, Seth with that Honor Guard that kind of stopped the early pressure from a potential 4-free Knight of Autumn, plus this Karn Sign of Urza, plus the other Carnage. I think Seth here is very ahead.
We've got a Knight joining the battlefield from that History of Benalia for Reza, but Seth continuing to pull ahead. There is this Karn, has not been used yet. Could minus, and that might be the time to grab this Carnage Tyrant. That's going to be the case. 6 mana available, plus a little bit extra because these Llanowar Elves, so Seth could actually make this kind of a 2-spell turn, one of them being that massive dinosaur.
Yeah, it feels here like there's no additional free drop to go for, but that's fine. You're still pulling ahead on cards. Seth, at this point, isn't worried about using the mana or a concept like tempo. Seth really is concerned about what could Reza do to take back this game, because Reza is really far behind with this Karn Sign of Urza. But yeah, with the History of Benalia being able to kind of get +2/+1, the thing is, any attack here is really difficult. Anything to Seth doesn't really matter because Seth could decide to take the damage and try to claim some of the board state. And yeah, this is looking really strong for Seth. There might also be a second Settle the Wreckage in hand, as well as a March of the Multitudes. I'm pretty sure I saw a March, and I think here Seth is going to push very far ahead.
If there's a March of the Multitudes for Drager, that is going to be a huge way to pull ahead. And there's, oh no! It's a Carnage Tyrant Orin on Sarah's Wings, but that means that this Karn is going to be able to grab it anytime you want. In fact, if you want to get really deep into the plays, there's another Karn in Seth's hand. He could just play that one down minus it. I don't think he probably wants to, but if he really wanted that on Sarah's Wings, it is available to him.
Yeah, I think here you just want to keep the Karn. You don't know what your opponent's deck list is. You don't know if they're running, say, an Excellence, not an Excellence Binding, but like you've seen Conclave Tribunal, right?
Yeah.
So you'd rather keep the Karn for if there's a Conclave Tribunal kind of trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, we saw that earlier. That actually took down the first set of Sarah's Wings. The second one, though, is what really closed out the game. So this Conclave Cavalier, the 4/4 Vigilance, just trying to do its best alongside these other knights. They all did get a fairly significant boost, and this has got to be a March of the Multitudes. Is this for
8?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, with Karn, if you have the main issue with Karn is that a lot of the times when you're giving a land, there's no way to really pull ahead. So that can be a problem with the card, but in a deck with this an X-Spell of this nature, like if you can build Karn in a deck where the excess lands have value, then that allows you to usually really pull ahead. But here, Reza has access to Foreign Lieutenant, which is not a card for this situation, and the Knight of Autumn is really tragically still in hand.
Yeah, and I mean just a huge swath of these life-linking 1/1s are now on the battlefield. It doesn't even matter how large they are. It looks like we only have 7 of them. It's 8 total, so that one being represented by 2 of them. Just a quick singular block on that. No sense in going for the full trade. We're going to gain a life anyway, and there's no trample on that to be seen. So, Thorn Lieutenant on the battlefield, and Drager now getting to untap with a Carnage Tyrant, 7 of these 1/1 life-linking creatures, and everything else that is to... This is not going to end well for Salati just from the way that things are looking right now. This is brutal.
Yeah, the only card Seth would be worried about at this point is something like Cellular Wreckage. So as long as Seth plays around the card, should take easy control. Here we're going to probably see Karn Minus on Sarah's Wings. Make Carnage Tyrant the legendary dinosaur it always dreamed it was.
All right, so can you beat an attack in for 8 in the air? I don't think that's going to be the case. And you mentioned a little bit that a lot of Seth's mentality right now is playing around how it is that he loses. And is that something that, at a certain point of advantage, you just need to naturally switch into? Is that a pretty common mentality to find yourself in a given game?
Yeah, here, it's just, when you're this far ahead, you're just trying to figure out how do I lose rather than how do I win, because the how do I win is trivial, as you can see here.
There's the handshake, and it is going to be Drager with on Sarah's Wings combined with Carnage Tyrant, taking down games 2 and 3 in this green-white face-off. Wow, that is not the way that I expected it to go when we first saw these cards line up. If you had asked me for my prediction, I would not have guessed that it would be an angelic dinosaur in to save the day for Seth. What a match to kick off this weekend.
Yeah, I think, here for me, Seth's deck is more tuned for the Selesnya Mirror. It can go one of the decks is just trying to play in the mid-game, and the other deck is capable of playing the much longer game. So usually when you're doing the mid-range mirror, but one of the decks can go far, kind of over the top, that's the deck that usually tends to be quite favored, especially in a matchup like this.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of those cards on the left side of the battlefield. They were utility cards, but a lot of that utility was less relevant to this matchup. We even had Knights of Autumn acting as, 4/3s, so as a cheap creature, as opposed to really getting to use, either that life gain for an aggressive matchup or that ability to destroy artifacts or enchantments.
Well, that was thanks to the good old Honor Guard, stopping the shenanigans of Knight of Autumn.
Absolutely. So that is going to be the first match here at Grand Prix Milwaukee. We'll be right back after this.